4, 3, 2, and 1.
Welcome to So You Think with Pastor Terry, the show that is spiritually relevant, culturally significant, that encourages people to look at life issues in a non-traditional way. If you would like to learn more about So You Think, we can be found on Facebook and YouTube at So You Think with Pastor Terry. So now, just sit back, relax, as we strive to open up your mind and your heart.
Hello and welcome to So You Think with Pastor Terry. We are so glad that you're here with us on the first show of the new year. Amen. We're so glad that we're here and that we've made it from 2020 to 2021. And we're just believing God to do some great things this year. And so tonight we're going to be covering a really, really sensitive subject. I'm going to get into that in a minute. But before I do, I want to let everyone know that the views and the thoughts and opinions expressed in this particular radio program are the program and its host, and not necessarily the radio station or the radio station owners or entities. And also know that this is a live show that we're recording now to be aired on Thursday at 6 o'clock. Again, that's Thursday at 6 o'clock on envision-radio.com. So please, if you miss this, catch us on Thursday at 6 o'clock on envision-radio.com. And so also you can download the Simple app and just type in envisionradio.com and that will pick it up as well. So we are glad. We're going to be talking tonight about a very sensitive subject tonight, a subject that is near and dear to my heart because I've been serving as a senior pastor now for approximately about 13 years. And I've had many different experiences. And my readings and in going through and serving, I've had an opportunity to talk to a lot of different pastors, and also and I've actually had pastor friends suffer from depression. I myself am one of those people that suffer from depression. They've not only suffered from depression, but there's a large number of them that are leaving the service, they're leaving ministry. They're in droves because of a lot of the hurt and the things that have gone on and dealing with various issues and things of this nature. But then what's the horrifying thing is when you have pastors that are dying in service. They're literally are dying. They're committing suicide, or they're dying of natural, whether it be heart attacks or strokes or whatever, but a lot of it's due to stress and whatnot. And so tonight, what I'm going to do, we're inviting you in to hear the hearts of the pastors. We're inviting you to a room tonight that's going to allow you to hear some things that is really pretty much only spoken amongst the clergy. And tonight I have on some wonderful guests tonight, but I also have my normal co-host. He's popping in, he's doing his thing, and he's getting things together on his end. And so I want to welcome our co-host, Minister Sedric. Are you ready, Minister Sedric? Hey, how you doing, Minister Sedric? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How you doing today, brother?
Doing great. Minister Sedric with us tonight. But also tonight, we have a return guest. We have Pastor Mario Martin. Pastor Mario, how are you doing, sir?
Everybody, welcome to be glad to be welcomed here once more and again. Hope I don't wear out my welcome.
You're good. You're good. We're glad that you can come and join us. And also tonight we have Pastor Bryant Stweart. He's back with us again, all the way from Knoxville, Tennessee. And tonight we have our
What's happening, y'all? Give me a second. I lost sound for somehow or another.
Oh, you got it. We have our main guest, and I'm just so honored to have him because he literally started a Facebook page for pastors called Sanctuary. And it's really a place where pastors can come and really be ministered to. And so tonight we have with us Pastor Stewart Peoples, pastor of the New Vine Baptist Church out of Lexington, Kentucky. Welcome, Pastor Peoples.
Thank you, Pastor Terry.
I think we just dropped off somebody. We dropped off Pastor Bryant Stweart. But tonight, like I was telling the audience in the introduction, is that we're really going to be letting them in to a space tonight that a lot of pastors, we just kind of have this discussion amongst ourselves. But I want to start with Pastor Peoples. Could you tell us about your Facebook page, the Sanctuary? Could you please tell us about that?
Well, thank you. Sanctuary is a safe place where leaders can come and vent without judgment. It's not only leaders; it's believers in general, but they're open to be as transparent as possible, because I believe that the more they stay to themselves, thinking that no one will understand them, that repression will lead to depression, and depression could lead to death. And so it is a preemptive thing to try to get people to open up. And Sanctuary is a safe place for them to do that. And you'd be surprised at how many leaders, very large and just any kind of size congregation, come simply to be heard. And what I want them to know is that they are at least heard, and we can go from there.
Right.
I don't try to come at them with rebuttals.
Right.
I let them be themselves, because right now that's what's most important.
Right. I mean, because like I was saying in the introduction, we are seeing a large number of clergy leave the ministry because of hurt, because of stress, because of anxiety, because of depression, because of suicidal ideation, and in some cases, homicidal ideation. I know of several pastors who deal with depression, and like I said, I'm one of them. I've been, diagnosed clinically depressed about 8 years ago, and it's been a roller coaster, for me. And then I've had people, ministers, other pastors, to die, whether it be from heart attack, stress, or even commit suicide, and that's been rampant across the country.
Yes,
And so tonight, we really want to let the congregation, let the membership, let the leadership, let everyone in on what's going on in the hearts of pastors. What happens, that creates the perfect storm for pastors to wind up feeling depressed or having some or bleeding as we have it. We have it listed when pastors bleed, or when the healer is wounded. So we want to talk about that tonight. So if we can talk about pastoral hurt, if you can really lay the foundation on that, Stewart, if you can really lay the foundation for that, where is that rooted? Where did that come from?
Well, being a PK myself, I've been behind the scenes. I've seen how much we can hurt. I've been hurt. And more importantly, what people don't understand is while they think we're just wrestling with them, we're actually wrestling with God. There's a question of theodicy. There's a feeling of loneliness.
Yeah.
And sometimes the elephant in the room is that we believe, but we want God to help our unbelief.
Right.
We are struggling just like everyone else. And sometimes our main issue is not with the parishioners. Right. The issue is with God himself.
Right.
And they don't know that we wrestle that much, but we do. We wrestle with the loneliness. We wrestle with unanswered prayers, so to speak. We wrestle with cognitive dissonance.
Yes.
And suicide is not only is it sad, but it's actually an indictment in a sense, because if someone commits suicide, they're actually somewhat saying that God doesn't care. And if they're successful, well, then that kind of proves their point.
Right. I mean, that is deep. I mean, that is a really the loneliness part. I don't think the congregants or people in the church understand how lonely this is. Can you talk about that, Pastor Mario?
Yeah, certainly. I think first off, I mean, just for where we are now, just as a whole, I think that 2020 was an excruciatingly devastating year for a lot of people. I think what it did was through a nationwide level of stress, I think what it did was begin to reveal to many of us just how alone many of us were. And the reason why I say that is, not to shame anybody at all, but often we speak about how much there's a kindred and there's brotherhood and we share and take care of each other. But when a lot of people are struggling at the same time, and becomes kind of every man for himself, a piece of, a little piece of the brotherhood is challenged. And throughout that, throughout the course of that, and I'm using 2020 as an example, but I mean, it's not, just isolated to just those particular challenges. But I think that sometimes when we go through certain things, that's really when we're tested. And that's also when our need and our desire to want to reach out or lean on somebody, or have somebody there, becomes, that much more, that much more relevant. And I think that, some of the things that goes through our minds at that time is, some people say you always got people to talk to. Try to talk to somebody, lean on somebody. Sometimes you want somebody who you can lean on, who you can talk to, who will come check on you without you having to, because you have to understand, in leadership of any kind, is, especially pastoring, church work is hard enough as it is.
Right.
But in any type of a leadership, you've always got to manage the emotions that you deal with and also what you show.
Right.
Because when I'm depressed or when I'm down, when I'm feeling a certain kind of way, then it's very likely that my down season can discourage somebody else. And so you have to be conscious of, if I'm bringing anybody else down, if I'm doing what I need to do to lift you up. And so sometimes you put your own feelings and your own stuff on the back burner.
On back burner. Yeah, it's like you're feeling like you're putting your life on hold and what you're dealing with on hold so that you can minister to someone else.
Yeah, and with no complaint, because this is the job.
Right. You don't complain. I think Stewart said it earlier. We don't complain. We just do. It's become so second nature because, to put ourselves on the back burner, our families on the back burner, our children on the back burner, and to go and to help someone else. I know you're shaking your head, Stewart. I mean, yeah, go ahead, Bryant.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bryant. Bryant?
Can you hear me? Oh, can y'all hear me? Sorry,
yeah,
my audio is getting funky. And another thing is, to complain is almost to not be God, not to be godly, not to have enough faith, not to believe, not to be a good enough leader. Can y'all hear me?
Barely. You're breaking in. Go ahead. Okay, Stewart, go ahead. Stewart Peoples, go ahead.
Okay, what's the issue again you were saying?
Okay, we basically are saying, oh my goodness, now I don't forgot it.
Are you talking about being understood or?
Yeah, okay, go ahead, Stewart. Bryant, go ahead.
Yeah, Bryant.
We can't hear you. Okay, Sedric, go ahead.
No, I was just going to kind of recap to make sure I was where we were. Is it seems like we were talking about how we're supposed to, as pastors, how you're supposed to go through and not complain about it. And so that's all I was going to add onto that. I was just going to let Mr. Peoples know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
We're not supposed to complain. Yes. And you're saying we're not. The expectation is that we're not supposed to complain. But yet we are. I think complaining is couched within a prayer of lament, even if it's directed toward God. We have to complain, whether it be to people or to God, or we'll go crazy. We have to get it out. And we have been we have been taught or indoctrinated to believe that we're not supposed to complain. Even at a funeral, you hear the song, I won't complain. No, you have a right to complain. And you should complain. Or you're going to get killed within yourself. Go ahead.
Yes.
But you also hear people, we're just talking, you're a pastor, you shouldn't cry, even like at funerals. I will never forget this. I was told that when I first came into the ministry by someone that says, when you need to get all your stuff out before you get up there, you're not supposed to shed a tear, and you're supposed to be there to encourage the family. But what if it's somebody that passes that is very near and dear to your heart?
Well, Jesus wept.
Boom.
I do think that some people taught us some things and they were sincere, but they were sincerely wrong.
Sincerely wrong. Right.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is true. Bryant, let's try you again, Bryant.
Okay, you good this time?
You need to get a better internet connection. Okay. Pastor Mario, go ahead.
I
double back on what the people listen. I can't express more. Crying is essential. And this is what I try, and I never, even at funerals, at any point, do I ever tell people, not to cry. I encourage them to cry. I encourage you to hurt, feel it, live in it. This is your time. It's not, I don't think it's inappropriate. I think the expectation, when it comes back to complaining, I think the expectation is, even when sometimes, when you talk to people who are, I'm getting a feedback, I'm sorry. When you talk to people who are even mentors, sometimes even the mentors will say, well, this is what you signed up for. This is what it is, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think sometimes that's the expectation. But the truth is, I am a man. In every field sense. I get hungry. I get thirsty. I get lazy. If you've ever seen my wife, I like thick women. You know what I mean? And I think that the church has done a poor job of the description we've set of what a preacher and what a pastor is. And so that we begin to stop thinking that this person is this is a real individual here. And just because, listen, you can preach the house down, you can be super anointed, you can prophesy, you can lay your hands on people up and get up, and still, you're still a man, you're still a woman at the end of the night.
Yeah. Okay, but I have a question. I have a question, and I'm gonna put this out for anybody. What is it like living under the microscope?
Well, was it like living under a microscope? Yeah. At this point, we're getting to the point where we don't care. It used to be that we cared. We're getting to the point that we don't, because these descriptions of what a pastor should do and is and all that kind of stuff, they're unreasonable. Hell's bells, if Jesus came back to the church today, we'd have to take him through orientation. Half the stuff that we're doing right now, he didn't do, and we shouldn't be doing.
That's right.
We have put this pressure on ourselves. And you asked one of your questions, how do we bleed? Why do we bleed? Well, some of these wounds are self-inflicted.
All right.
We need to take some of the pressure off of ourselves. Most of this stuff that we're expected to do, God never said to do. We're doing that. These are traditions based on nothing except for feelings and a Mountain Dew. And so therefore we need to do something that is reasonable. Take the expectations off, alleviate some things that are just not biblical, they're not scriptural, and quite frankly, they're deadly.
And it's kind of funny. I went to a retreat, and the people there, they said, something, your job is to love God and love the people. If you're doing more than that, you're doing too much.
All we need is a Bible and a place to stand. Everything else is ice cream and cake.
That's it. Wow. Go ahead, Minister Sedric, go ahead.
I mean, what can I add to that? I mean, because I'm in total agreement to some of the things we do. When we start focusing on pleasing people as opposed to the scriptures, as opposed to allowing people to see the God in us, right? You know, we start, I like to call it self-inflicted wounds. We start sticking ourselves, and we start to be so hard on ourselves, and we create this standard that I've never done anything outside of the will of God. We create this standard that we can't live up to. And what happens? We try so hard to live up to that standard that we ourselves created, that we wind up, what we wind up doing is preaching something that it's like Mr. People said, it's not of God. It's something that we've created. So and we create our own stretches that way.
Yep. And that's why one of the reasons the church needs to go into church history and not just biblical history, and that'll put what we do in context.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too, we set improper and ridiculous standards for ourselves just based on the spirit of competition. You know, sometimes trying to compete and I think sometimes where we can find peace, and I can speak from experience, where we can find peace is knowing who we are, finding who we are, not just in the spirit, in the kingdom, knowing who we are personality-wise, knowing our capabilities, and then we can find a groove to be in. I'm somebody who, you know, I take great pride in being able to be myself everywhere I go. I'm a stand-up comedian who pastors a contemporary church in the Midwest. I mean, you know, that's who I am. I may not ever grow a potter's house.
Right.
You know what I mean? Okay. But if I remember G.E. Patterson preached a sermon years ago. I think it was the 80s. Probably was the 80s. But he preached a sermon. It was know your place and stay in it. And he talked about the importance of being a foot. And he was saying, you know, people complain about getting walked on. He said, well, maybe that's a good foot. He said, stop concentrating on how to avoid being a foot and learn how to be the best foot that you can be. Right. And when I get to the place where I understand who I am, then I don't have to, you know, I relieve myself of the pressure of being somebody else.
Right.
The problem then, the issue is, am I going to allow somebody else to put me in a box or to create something for me? And am I willing to, you know, make those adjustments?
Right. Now we're gonna try Pastor B one more time.
Praying for you, bro.
And I don't even want to try.
No, you're there.
I don't even want to try.
There he is.
There you go.
There he is.
All right.
There is a God.
But no, real talk though. I think it is a ridiculous thing to not know yourself, but more importantly, to not allow those misnomers and those crazy nomenclatures of our community to be pressed on us. And to not consider yourself more or less godly because you are more or less not what somebody thought you should be. Like the greatest thing about the Bible, and I think this is something that Pastor Kylie Gray pointed out, is that every faith is built upon the experience of faith. Every scripture exude is created based upon someone else's view and practice of that life word being worked and lived out. And the thing that I think we pastors don't allow ourselves to be is several things. One, vulnerable, because we're too afraid of being exposed by each other. Number two, I think a big thing that we really need to wrestle with is the fact that there is literally more dependency on our members than people like to give us credit for. In the sense that we need to be held as much as we hold, and that a lot of it's been created into celebrity rather than it being created into dependency. And I don't mean it in an unhealthy way, but in a very healthy, pragmatic way. That as we show them Christ, they also have the opportunity to show us Christ.
Right. But Pastor Peoples, you got something on your mind there. It looks like.
Well, I'm listening to our brothers. They're helping me, and I appreciate this opportunity to listen to each other and learn from each other. I think the expectations being under the microscope and so on, those don't help. But what is not being said still
Mhm.
is how many pastors, they are wrestling with themselves. They need to find themselves. They need to be held and not just whole. They need to do all things,
Mhm.
but they're wrestling with God himself.
Right.
Unanswered prayers, cognitive dissonance. That it's almost as if God shows signs, flashes of dystheism, like there's another side,
Mhm.
and we're trying to find out who this is.
Yes,
You,
right.
you know, you wake up in the middle of the night, and all of a sudden, like Moses, God wants to kill you.
Mhm.
What's going on?
Yeah.
There's a screaming silence, and so while we're wrestling with ourselves
Mhm.
and wrestling with the people, what's not being said, and what a lot of us cannot afford to say, is how much we actually wrestle with God,
Mhm.
the reality of God. Where is God? And you know, and this is why we have these psalms of lament, because we have to get this out. It's biblical,
Mhm.
it's natural, and I'm glad we have opportunity like this to get it through.
Yeah. And one of the, like you said, we wrestle with the fact is like, okay, God, you want me to preach that, and I'm struggling with this?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. You know, those are the types of wrestling matches I get into. You know, and I'm sitting
Yeah.
there like, man, and it's like, and it really gets me. In you know, and it's like, man, you really want me to preach? I'm, it's
Yeah.
like I'm standing up there naked.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and yet you can't ask God of anything. We've been indoctrinated to believe you can only ask so many questions, like God has anger management issues or something.
right?
So you keep it to yourself all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always say, if I can ask God, who do I have to? He the one got the answers.
Right. Yes, anger management issues. I love that one. Hey, I want to put this out to the many people that are watching tonight. If you all have a question, please put it in the comment box. We will ask these men these questions. So that if you want more knowledge of what can you do to help your pastor. We really, come on, ask the questions. We will make sure that they get asked to the people on the platform tonight. But I guess, since I just put that out there, what can a congregation do? Is there anything they can do to help their pastor?
Very few. Depends on who you trust. I mean, we're never called as pastor. We're calling you a becoming pastor. It takes years. You have the title, but you don't have the authority. And once you get it, they try it. So we're always battling with the congregation and battling with God. Black folks especially like to test their leader. Unfortunately, we're tired of being tested. We're tested by life, and I will get tested now from half-saved Negroes. We don't want to do that either. We're stressed out, we're frustrated, and then on top of that, when you find out that some pastors have committed suicide, some of their own will turn on them. Barely give them a funeral. They've already been through hell, and now they're going to send them to hell to give them a graveside service. This is why they turn to the medicine cabinet and with other things and use the spirit instead of the spirit, because that's all they can do right now.
Right. Yeah, you find drug abuse high and within the pastoral community. I mean, again, just to get away. It's one of those moments. If I can just get away for 15, 20 minutes, even if it's a high, you know.
And I've checked my GPS and I still can't find a way.
But right, and I guess one of the things that you all had said earlier was about having somebody that you can trust, that is not going to throw you under the bus and roll you over. That's the part, Pastor Stewart. Go ahead.
No, wait, Peoples.
Go ahead.
Pastor Stewart, Peoples.
Oh, sorry.
You're talking about people thrown underneath the bus?
Yeah. I was talking to Pastor Stewart.
It's almost like we've been, you get pledged into this. You want to tell people, look, we got drafted into the Salvation Army. This is not like this is the only thing we could do.
Right.
There are other things we wanted to do. We got drafted. We're here. We ran away from ministry. Now we got to deal with you all too. And then we got to deal with the fraternity or preachers or pastors who, if you don't do this, that, or the other, then you're blackballed. And if you're blackballed, then you won't be on the circuit. You won't have a major house and all that mess. It's ridiculous. And so who do we turn to? we turn to groups like this who are willing to be transparent no matter what.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Pastor Bryant Stewart.
No, I was gonna say flat out, I totally agree with Pastor Peoples, but my biggest thing, Pastor Stewart, I was gonna say for me is the hardest thing is trusting people. I mean, it is practically. I've rarely had an instance before a preaching moment where somebody just called me and prayed with me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just to check and see how I'm doing. I mean, we got some of those good old Southern church members that'll cook you a meal or sit you aside a plate, knowing that you got 50 million needs, or send you home with the dish, after the service is over, worship and a word, and some food. But the truth of the matter is, how many people just call you and say, or don't even call me during the middle of the week to pray for me. Just leave me alone on my vacation.
You talking about how many people do that?
Don't call me.
How many people care for you like that? Well, you can probably meet in a phone booth. There are not too many people who are going to do that whatsoever. And they don't care.
No.
Very few.
So yeah, because you could be honestly, vacation for some pastors, until you set that boundary, they don't think you need a vacation. Folk think that
you on call.
That you on call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, like Jesus.
Yeah.
Which makes you want to be bivocational.
Right. Right. And that's the sad thing, because again, they don't respect boundaries. It's like, you gotta sleep, and then when they call you at 1 o'clock in the morning, can you just pray with me?
But they've been indoctrinated to act like that.
That way.
The old school indoctrinated them to act like that. Some of them don't know any better.
Don't know any better.
Go
ahead, Mario.
Can I interject this too? And I'm speaking this from experience, because I know that in many cases, I know I'm not the only one, because I learned it. This was a learned behavior. Many of those cases, I indoctrinated them to that way, by the way that I, not by what I said, but how I acted. And for me, it was really like my wife was really the one that helped me, get it in gear. Because for me, my pastor who, or one of my pastors who I grew up under, I saw him work night and day. Anytime you called, he answered. He used to not even lock his door. I could go over there and walk in whenever I wanted to. And this is how he was. It didn't matter. You need a ride to work? I got it. You need gas money? I got it. Whatever it was, he got it. You know what I mean? And when I started pastoring 3 3.75 years ago, I thought that's how you become, number one, because I was desperate, right? Because I'm desperate. I want people to like me. I want people to love me. I want people to feel my love more than they feel Reverend Richard's love down at the big church. So, you know what I mean? So I'm like, so I get a few people, a few visitors. So, me, look, anytime you need me, call me. And then my problem is I really mean that. Like, that's part of my problem. Like, literally, I answer whenever. And, my wife had to say, hey, look, you need to have some hours, at night. It's, sometimes got to be a cutoff or something. And I have to start doing that. And now, like today, Monday, this is my off day. I'm off on Mondays. And I made Monday my off day because this is usually the day that I'm, this gives me a day to reflect from the weekend. So anybody I feel like I want to cuss out, I can buffer my words before I talk to them on Tuesday.
You don't want to talk in cursive.
Anybody I feel like, that whatever, I get this day to get myself together so that Tuesday when I have this conversation, you can get the Mario you like.
Yeah.
But I think my point was that my initial point was I think that for a lot of times we create that atmosphere, because of how we treat people, and even though it's out of good intention, like I tell people, listen, if you're a pastor and you don't love people, you in the wrong spot. I don't think God told you to do this, because this is about you. This is about loving people. So I get it, but I think sometimes we have to be able to manage our love. I know that's probably gonna get me in trouble. But we have to manage our love.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. And honestly, I'm guilty as charged. I did that. Oh my gosh. I mean, Sedric, he told me numerous times. He said, look, you're setting the standard here. And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm just loving the people. You know, he's like, no, you don't understand. And then when it got so heavy to the point to where boundaries were not being followed, or wasn't respected, you would, and this was like, in my mind, I'm thinking, oh well, common courtesy thinks, you're not going to call me after 10 if it's not an emergency.
It's always an emergency.
Look, if it's after 9 o'clock, you only got 3 people to call: the ambulance, the police, and the funeral director.
Boom.
All right, that's just about it.
Yeah, that's about it. Right.
The problem right now is, the way you set it up was basically people are getting the best of you, and your family gets the rest of you. That's not fair. They're supposed to be the first ministry.
Right.
And finally, we're flipping that around.
Right. Finally flipping around. Okay. But Sedric, what you got up there, co-host?
Nah, man, you know what? I'm sitting there taking it all in, and I still was stuck on your question. What can we do to help pastors and like it's already been stated, give you some time, set some boundaries, and definitely give you your family time and encourage you. I think we need to be more like that when it comes to our pastors. So I really don't have much to add to that.
Well, I think some of us also need to. I know it sounds sacrosanct, but some of us, with all the stress and all these bad expectations, we not only think about installation, but resignation.
All right.
So expound upon that, please, sir.
All right.
Ain't nobody talking about, dying in the pulpit and all that kind of stuff. So they need a chicken dinner going with somebody else. No, you have to know when your time is done. Be honest with yourself. Have things set up. Have things set up in order so that you can make the next transition. You don't have to die with your robe on in the pulpit. Jesus died for all of us. He doesn't need us to duplicate what he did.
Right. Oh man, you just said something deep right there.
Yeah.
Pastor Stewart, what you got?
Sometimes the love is in the no. Sometimes the love is in the no, because let me tell you, one of the wrestles that we have with God is that he don't always tell me yes.
That's right.
He does not always tell me yes. Sometimes he tells me no. When I want a yes so bad, I ain't sure if it's my flesh or my spirit. But I'm gonna tell y'all sometimes. Let me tell y'all, as a matter of fact, I was ready to resign over some stuff that was going on in my personal life. And I walked up to my president to pull him aside and let him know he was going to have a letter. And when I walked up to him, God was like, no. I had to run into the bathroom like a high school and bare school child and cry, because God gave me a no when I was ready for yes. And the thing that I think a lot of people need to understand is the yes and the no are both love. But more importantly, when you get your no, when you really felt like you needed a yes, it is going to develop. And I don't mean this on the Holy Spirit super faithful tip, but just real talk. It will cause you to discover some things about yourself and God that you never knew existed. You don't know what real forgiveness is until you know that you're guilty and you go to repent for that thing, and he tells you tell nobody.
Wow.
I mean, and that's the wrestle that we quietly deal with as pastors, that we feel sometimes ashamed to tell a therapist. But the truth is, you don't feel the comfort to tell your own brother that you're dealing with this thing. And it's something that's a sin and a shame that we have also been likewise cultured our members to think that every promise or every word to the pastor or everything that needs to be done is yes and amen. And that sometimes God don't sit our behinds down with a no. And that there ain't nothing wrong with it.
Wow. Pastor Stewart Peoples, where you at?
Well, he's right. In dealing with the no's and dealing with the yeses of God, we love God. Quite frankly, we don't always like what he says or what God does. And that's just being transparent. We really don't.
Right.
and even to get that out. And the church expects us, though, when we pastor these churches. I've been in ministry since 1988, pastoring for 20 years. They expect us to be at the same church and die at the same church. If this was a game, though, we'd have to admit sometimes you have to know that you've taken the congregation as far as they can. It doesn't mean you finish the game. There's somebody else in the bullpen. You planted, someone else needs to water. Know your role. Know when it's time to hold them and fold them. Pray about it and leave that thing alone. I think a lot of us are stressed out because we feel like, the expectation is if we don't finish out this or that to the people's expectations, then we've been a failure. No, you're a success when you're honest with yourself and do what you have to do, no matter what they say.
Does anybody have any questions out there? I know that there's a lot of people watching tonight because I mean, on another platform, we're getting a whole lot of streaming stuff and people coming on, and I'm watching, and I'm sitting here like waiting for some good questions to pop up here. But I got one for you guys. I want. What is it like to constantly have your preaching and your ministry always criticized and compared to others,
I don't like
pastors, other denominations, and
I don't like it. Quite frankly, I don't like preaching in front of other preachers. I get tired of hell. I can't concentrate on what I'm supposed to be doing, but trying to figure out the etymological root meaning of the Hebrew and the Greek. I just want a word and want to give one. So I get very comfortable or uncomfortable sometimes, but even us, because I feel like I got to prove something to them before I have to reach the people I need to reach.
Right.
Wow.
And some of these half-saved preachers who are sitting up there trying to examine what I'm talking about, they get on my nerves just like they get on yours. So no, I'm very uncomfortable preaching for the most part in front of us because I know how we are, and you do too.
All I can do is this right here and give that to you, bro. You are so true. Oh my goodness. I mean, where Bryant?
And quite frankly, not only am I exhausted by it, but then when you get into the streets, you see how unfit we really are to bring anybody into the church and or reach anybody's needs. Because we spend so much time in syntax trying to figure out if it's a genitive means or genitive apposition that we sit here now stuck inside of some situations. Or genitive of relation. We sit here in some situations that now we so heavenly minded we ain't no earthly good. Right. And it's really, really, really frustrating because how many times do I feel left inadequate? Not because I didn't preach what God told me to, but because I got off the pulpit completely empty, and the first word that was deposited into my spirit was, "Well, you missed that. You missed that preposition. And if you set that preposition on, boy, we would have told the church up." And it's just like.
Heard that one before.
Sounds like Stewart Peoples has been there before.
I know you all know how it feels. We don't. I mean, quite frankly, we'd rather sit on the floor. We don't want to sit up there and look at y'all either. Right. Do the whole thing and have to wait for us to get up and all. We'd rather sit down and not face you at all until we have to, if we're trying to be transparent. Furthermore, Jesus didn't have a hoop. He didn't have 3 points in the poem and an intro and all that kind of stuff. The rest of this is just man-made, quite frankly. And if we would just keep everything in context and stop trying to please the people and start being a preacher, not a performer, we'd be all right.
But I guess I'm going to throw this out. Now, I'm going to throw this to Sedric and Pastor Mario. Pastors have a tendency to wound other pastors. Let's talk about that. Because one of the things that really bothers I want to say it the way I feel it. Like I said, I the cursive room here, but is I hate it when pastors walk up to you. How much you carrying, Doc? How much what you carrying on a Sunday? To make you feel some kind of way. Am I the only person that's been down that road before?
I don't know what that means.
Repeat the question again. What do they do? What now? Excuse me.
How they wound you? Other pastors wound other pastors.
Yeah.
Y'all have heard it. The church is the only army that wounds its own soldiers, and we do it all the time.
Mhm.
That's why we bleed, as one of your questions was. We bleed.
We
And the
bleed.
point is,
Yeah.
our blood pressure, our cholesterol, our ER visits are not from the gangbangers. It's from
No,
presidents
sir.
and culinaries and chair people and stuff like that. African American, black, colored Negroes who are pushing stuff on us that is unnecessary. We are
Yeah.
dying because of the church and not for the church. This is
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Go ahead, Mario.
One of the most insulting compliments that I've received. Doc, you keep preaching like that, you're going to get somebody in there.
What?
Well, Doc, I heard you. I see. Well, you keep preaching like that, you're going to get somebody in there.
Yeah.
That's the most backhanded compliment, bro.
You know, it doesn't bother me.
I got some work from that. Mhm.
It doesn't bother me. You know, I've been doing stand-up since over 10 years. I done did big crowds, small crowds. I've never been booed, but I've been heckled. I've been ignored. I've been talked crazy to by my peers. All of that stuff. Look, my skin is so thick. I keep going back to the Noah story. The Noah story. Noah blesses my life. Noah blesses my life. He just kept hammering and hammering by himself.
And had some Hennessy when it was all over.
Okay, come on now.
He ain't got a drink.
He ain't got a drink.
Had it on the rock.
So be exact.
I said, look, I can't make it rain. I'm just gonna build my boat. I'm gonna build my boat and have my drink, Pastor Peter.
That's it.
Yes, sir.
Minister Sedric, what you got?
You know, like I said, I don't have much, but I tell you, I really, in my short time, I really felt. I mean, pastors that I ran into. The wound I have from other pastors was just that, you know, when I had a really, really tough time, when I had a question, I didn't get an answer. I'm gonna be praying for you. But for me, being in the pulpit, my biggest hurts came from, you know, just the people that I serve. You know, so I don't really have a long list of hurts from other pastors. Now, other ministers, I had other ministers to tell me what they thought I should be doing, and you know, what they thought I was really good at. So, you know, don't try to shape me, mold me. You don't have that. You don't have that position. You don't have that power. I seek God for that. But that was kind of my biggest thing. Other than that, you know, I just walking around and being naive. You know, just praising God. Hey, Lord, hallelujah. You know, that was me right there.
So, look,
My biggest.
some of these, excuse expression, some of these brothers need to be told, look, you full of shit. I don't want to hear you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be around you.
Yeah,
that's true.
No. And I don't want to be associated with you furthermore.
Right.
Because, you know, everything I hear that comes about your members' mouths, I don't exactly know what the energy said about me. And one of the craziest things that I think are really, really difficult I had where I got injured by other pastors was, you know, in my denomination, you can be part-time, full-time. And when you part-time, I got part-time with a different life. Like I had to do two churches and I was a part-time pastor. And I'm talking about paid a third of the time, but the other full-time pastors get paid for one church. But the overall point was, while being bivocational, my hardest thing was going into these forums, going into these places, and then preaching, and they tell you they're gonna call you to come help you out, get some change in your pocket, so you don't have to run as hard, and nobody calls you. Nobody calls you. And the worst part is, and then when you finally get on full time, they say, "Well, where did you come from?" Like they ain't never seen you before. And then last but not least, when I was there finished.
What do you say, Mario?
Look, and then when you actually start doing something, then they want to be associated with you because they need your vote, but they don't want to be associated with you because you don't fit the mold. And the biggest hurt I think is the and maybe man, I shared this on my page. I need to take this down. Anyway, the biggest thing that is the biggest trouble that I have experienced within our ecclesiastical existence has literally been the dedication, but the lack of follow through. And then those that do follow through don't really have nothing good to share. And then last but not least, the ones that you really need something from that will give you some critique are too busy to help you. And it is the craziest world to be a student of any university, graduate with a theology degree on whatever level, be thrusted into a church and not know how to run a board meeting, for God's sake. And then be told that you need, just believe in the Lord. Hold on to God's unchanging hand. Don't preach it if you don't feel it. Or some. I mean, just you can't preach nothing you ain't been through. Of course, I can't say this and that. Anyway, but I mean, there's just so much going on, and it's just been absolutely crazy to be left alone at 20-something odd years old with no wife or recently divorced, and nobody calls you for nothing. Not to see how you're doing, not to tell you to die in a corner alone, not to tell you you're trying. I mean, nothing.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw this out there. Somebody, a pastor just said, and this is really, and the pastor just posted this on another platform. I love it. I love it. He said, in the pulpit with some pastors, to them, you're not good enough. And again, that goes back to that. We stab each other versus encouraging each other.
Yeah.
It goes back to that where, you have cliques in the pulpit. You got certain people that only hang with or only talk to certain people over here because they're of a certain status. Or and in your case, Stewart, you come from a very long history. You have a very deep history. Your father in ministry and whatnot. Right. They won't talk to you not unless you come from that type of a line. They won't give you the time of day.
My father was a pastor, Dr. Kevin Cosby in Louisville. That's my cousin, right. All around the nation, and so on. My brother's a pastor.
Yeah.
And you're right. If you don't come from a certain pedigree or whatever, they don't want to talk to you.
Right.
But then too, I do come from a certain pedigree, and I don't want to talk to them.
No. Yeah. Let me tell you how regular, and that's why I love each and every one of you all, because each one of you all are just regular to me. Right. How I hooked up with Stewart Peoples was we were shopping for shoes. We were both at Dillard's, right? And Dillard's has the best shoe section in the city of Louisville. And we were looking at shoes, and I said, Stewart Peoples? He's like, yeah. I said, I'm on your feet. And that's how we met.
Yep.
And we just kept it regular like that.
Keep it real.
And I really love that.
I got back in my car and listened to some Jodeci and kept moving.
Boom. Yes, you do. And you got that 5-finger distance too. I kind of like that too. I listened to a couple of the songs, man. You've been hitting the concert heavy.
I'm in the kingdom, but I'm from the south side of the kingdom.
And I just gotta share this with you. This right here, people don't see this. And honestly, this is who we are.
Right.
We laugh, we joke.
Yeah.
Some people, some pastors smoke cigars. Some people have sips of bourbon. Some people drink beer. Some people, you know what I'm saying? But the point is that does not make anyone less anointed.
Yeah.
Or less used by God. And honestly, I'm really coming into that knowledge of that and really going with that because I believe, and God has used me in even with all that. And so not saying that it gives carte blanche for people to go and become, falling all over the place, doing all kind of craziness. But you know what I'm saying? But we got to realize, like Pastor Mario said, that we're human, we're man first. Yeah. We're human first. And with that said, gentlemen, we are coming to a close. of this hour.
Man.
This has been wonderful. And I thank you all for coming and sharing. We got to chop this up again. I believe there's more in here and I wish Dr. Charles Wallace could have joined us tonight from Princeton, New Jersey. We would have really been all in it. But I really would hope that you guys come back and join me on the show again, and we'll do a part 3, because this is 2 parts right here, and we'll do part 3. But thank you all for joining us, and thank you for joining us, and thank you all in the audience, for people that are watching. Thank you all for supporting So You Think with Pastor Terry. Know that this is live, but if you missed it tonight, you can catch it on Thursday with the podcast on Elation. No, Envision. Oh, that's Elation is you, Sedric. Envision-radio.com. Envision-radio.com. Thursdays at 6. Check us out. So You Think with Pastor Terry. Again, thank you all for joining us, and you all have a blessed evening.
Peace.
God bless.